Hello, hello. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a great workshop planned for you all about NITRO reports. And of course, we have our resident NITRO guru, James Restivo, joining us today. And James will be giving us all the updates and everything we need to know about NITRO reports, as well as we get into this, if you've been on a workshop before, you've heard me say this, if this is your first one, definitely be sure to ask questions. We're here for you. The workshops are completely put on to support you, answer your questions, give you the tools that you need to be successful. So don't be shy. Use that question box on the right side there of your screen. We want to hear from you and love hearing the feedback, questions, anything you got. And also, this will be recorded, so we'll be adding this to our website as well as our YouTube channel, so you can check on it there if you want to reference anything after the fact. And we will be keeping it kind of high level with the updates. Of course, you can always get pretty nitty gritty with everything. So if you do have a super specific, case that you want to dive into one-on-one, of course, we're here for that as well. But yeah, don't be shy. We're here for the questions. If you've got time, pop them in there. And with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and hand things over to James.
Awesome. Thanks, Krista. I appreciate it. Yeah, so today we're going to do a walkthrough of our NITRO reporting tool, as Krista said. And this will be a dive into it from soup to nuts, essentially. How do we get going with it? What do the different things mean? And then what you can do with it is really up to you as far as how you configure the reports. And I'll show you some new UI options as well that we've released, and plus the new exciting large list support we have in our tools. And this is in our reporting tool, but we also have this available for our NITRO list views and tiles and dials. That's it. So let me go ahead and grab the screen. I'll show my screen over here and make sure you can see it. Okay, looks like you can, so that's great. So yeah, we're going to kind of walk through, getting into the reporting tool and different ways that you can build these reports. And what I'm going to start from, as I like to do, is from our demo site, or really demo ticketing solution. We have our NITRO help desk. We have a bunch of tickets in there that I've created. It really shows well. And I know a number of people on the call today have either are using the help desk or maybe interested in it. So this also kind of serves as a little bit of a preview of that as well. And if you want to get a deeper dive of that specifically, you can certainly reach out to us and we'll get a one-on-one demo set up so we can look at the help desk in more detail and look at that one from soup to nuts. But yeah, so we want to talk about the reporting tool specifically. And I'm going to start by just getting to it, right? So how do we get here to the screen that you see on your screen now? Oh, the way I like to do it, there's a number of ways to do it, but usually there's kind of like one preferred way that people choose, and that's whatever you want to do. My preferred way is to go through site settings, which in the a lot of times in modern pages you'll see site information instead of site settings first. But I'll go ahead, go into site settings, and you notice under site administration, if you have access to see it, you'll see Crocan and NITRO reports usually somewhere near the bottom. And we'll go ahead and pull that up, and that's gets us right back to where we just were. So that's the way I like to do it. Of course, you can also go through the NITRO Studio screen itself. That's right at the top, one of the options right at the top of the NITRO Studio screen as well. So there's a couple different ways to get here. Now, you can see we've created a whole bunch of out-of-the-box reports here for our NITRO help desk, and so we can take a look at those. And if there's any you're interested in looking at specifically, certainly throw that up on the question box, and we'll take a look at it. But I'm going to look at one specifically called Open Tickets by Priority and Category, because it has a lot of has some good information in it. So we'll be looking at this one. But one of the cool things about it that you might not know about the reporting tool is that you can just type in up here and it already starts to filter the reports below. You notice that we now have a reduced list of reports below, and you can get to your report that way. So if you remember what your report name is, it's easy to get to it, especially when you start getting a large number of reports like we've built in here. You'll see that it's quite a bit. It's across different lists. We got reports on change requests, reports on tasks, reports on all sorts of different lists within our site. So obviously, once you get to that level, you're going to want to get back to, you want to just type in the name and they'll just pull up and filter for you. So that's going to make it nice and easy. And so we're going to edit this one. Of course, we could go create a new report, but I'm just going to edit this one. It's the same experience essentially of editing versus creating new. You get to change things in here. And while that's coming up, we did have a question pop in about getting to the report center or to the reporting tool, whether it's the same for on-prem versus Office 365. Yeah, it is. And if it's not in site settings, because I haven't used and I'll be honest, I haven't used an on-prem site in quite a while. If it's not under site settings for an on-prem site, let me show you real quick that you can go to the NITRO Studio page. Let me just go ahead and duplicate this real quick just to show that individual how to get to it. If you go to, I'm just going to get to the NITRO apps through site settings, but you can get to NITRO apps however however you're most comfortable. But essentially, that's going to bring up your NITRO Studio page, which I hadn't brought up yet today. So it's going to take a little minute to load. Usually, once you are in there, it goes a little quicker. And then you'll see NITRO Reports on your screen. So that should be here, whether you're on-prem or Office 365. Either way. So that's a couple different ways to get here. So we'll go ahead and start from the top. You can give it a title, so that can come later. Once you get things configured, you can enter a title later. You do have to enter a title before you save it because it is required. But if you don't quite know how you're going to build your report yet, you can just leave that report title blank to start. We can put some delays in there, so that can be useful if you're loading a page with lots of reports on it. And we built some pages in the help desk tool, and I built some internally with some of our internal stuff, where there's just a whole host of reports, and it could be 20 reports on a page. Just for load balancing purposes, you might want to delay loading one or more reports just to give your system time to catch up. And if you don't need that report right away, you can delay that load. Otherwise, you can just have it pop up automatically once you load the page where that report lives. And then the other option, of course, is enable automatic refresh, which I would only recommend in scenarios where you're wanting to get that refresh data frequently. A lot of times, every time you reload the page, you can click off of it, come back to it, hit the refresh button at the top. It's going to reload that data, right? So these reports are live reports in that they look at what's going on in the list. As soon as you add a new ticket, like if you use this as an example, here, if we add a new ticket with a category of website and the priority of normal, that's going to tick that up to 384. As soon as that gets into the system, I refresh the page, I see that updated number. So that's going to be a live look at it. So that's where the automatic refresh can come into play if you want that live look. I've seen scenarios actually where when I went on a customer site and they had the report dashboard up on a screen above all the help desk technicians, and it was basically like how quickly were they closing the tickets, and it was sort of like a gamification of it in a way where they could see a live look at, okay, what's been closed, how many tickets have been closed by this person, by that person. So, and I think it was like on a day-by-day basis or weekly basis, whatever it was, but they have that automatic refresh enabled, and that would just every 5 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever it is. And if you click that, you get the option to see what the interval is. It will refresh that page and show the updated statistics to the team. I thought that was kind of cool. It's like they had like 3 different reports on the screen, and it was I think it was just like showing them how quickly they were getting stuff done. So I thought that was really neat. But normally you might not need that if you're just looking at like a dashboard report or looking at survey reports like we might have in our help desk. Again, like I said, every time you refresh that page anyway and go to it, it's going to refresh the data. So, I don't recommend it typically, but yeah, if you have that kind of like gamification situation where you want to refresh it on a big screen, that I think that's a cool application for it. And then the other reason there, you might not want to do automatic refresh for everything is because it doesn't just refresh the report. It actually goes through and refreshes the whole page. So especially if you have a scenario where someone is entering a ticket or updating a ticket on that page and a report in the background all of a sudden updates, they're going to lose that work that they've done. So that's one of the reasons I don't recommend it in typical scenarios. But if it's just like a dashboard viewing page, certainly fine. The other thing you'll notice here under list details, of course, you can report off of a SharePoint list. But you can also configure a list rollup, which is one of the options we have in our NITRO Studio tool, where you can concatenate and bring together information from multiple lists into one list rollup configuration. And through our reporting tool, now you can get reports off of that as well. So you can just simply select list rollup when you're selecting this, setting this up for the first time, and you'll get that options, whatever list rollup configurations you've done, you'll see those options here. Now, of course, you have to go and configure that list rollup first, but once you've done that, you can come back here and access that setting and bring it up, and then set your settings for the rest of it. Then most of the times it's going to be a list. The other option you have, and this is for dashboarding, depending where you want to have the dashboard, you can either get the information from a list in the current site, or you can get it from the current site collection, current site, or a different site URL completely. And we've done that a lot with our portal ticket, the help desk portal. We might have a report on there, or even like a technician portal where we have it a separate site from where the data actually lives. So you can show that report of the data on site B over here. You got your dashboard page on site A. Well, you're going to have to go and configure the report on site A, but just reference the data on site B, right? And you can do that either from a site in the current site collection, or you can specify a site URL to get that data. And of course, as long as you have access to it, as long as the user who's viewing it has access to it, you'll see that report. So, and it does honor those permissions. So if they don't have access to that site and they don't have access to that list, they're not going to see the information from over there. So they do have to have permissions to see the information. So you can see we're pulling it from the current site. We always identify the current site we're in. This site, it says this site at the end of it, however big this is. You can see here's the other sites within site collection. We have a lot in here because it's my workshop site, and I just create new sites all the time. So there's tons of stuff there. And then you can select your list. So this shows all the lists from your site, and then you can select your views. Now, the nice thing here is that you can create a report on any type of view that you configure. So you can do all open tickets, you can do all closed tickets, you can do tickets older than 30 days, you can put some time-bound views in there, but these are all SharePoint views that you've configured on that list, and it'll honor whatever the filtering is, right? So it's really kind of a filtering scenario, or a filtering device, where you can go and filter the views in the SharePoint list view configurations, and then you can use that view in your report that you're configuring on this page here. But you can have multiple views in here. So if you wanted to look at, let's just look at assigned tickets and, I don't know. Well, anyway, what's a good? Well, it looks like closed tickets and all open tickets. That's basically going to be the same thing as all tickets, more or less, but it's kind of a different way to get there. And you might have configured already, especially for the Office 365 customers, you might have already configured list views that are bring back less than 5,000 items. So this gives you a way to show those all, kind of the full scope of all the tickets that you have. If it's over 5,000, full scope of data or list items that you have, even if it's over 5,000, you can configure multiple views that each are under 5,000, and then you can plop them into this views drop down here, and you'll be able to see those in the report. But that's kind of a moot point now because we have the large list support. And if you update Nitro, this should be in later versions. I believe this is out there for on-premise. No, it's not quite there for on-prem yet. I apologize. It's not there for on-premises yet, but it is there for Office 365, where we have this is large list support. And so that means even if your view itself is going to return over 5,000 items, we can still support it. So I chose the site specifically because I've gone through and created more than 5,000 tickets here. I did use a custom action. I didn't go and create new ticket every 5,000 times. I created a custom action which went and ran and created all these different tickets. You can see I have approximately the same number of categories. I just cycled through the categories and created tickets, and over 5,000 of them. you can see if we add up all the numbers here, it comes up to over 5,000. And so you'll see what happens here if I choose my all items view. And let me just refresh this, make sure it's, oh, reset everything because I reset the column. But anyway, that's okay. Let me cancel out of this because I didn't save it. Let me cancel out of this and come back to it because it reset everything when I was changing those list view settings. It reset all the data. I didn't save it though, so it's going to still be there. But it did reset all my data. So without going through and reconfiguring all of it, I'm just going to go ahead and reopen that report. Okay, you see my all open tickets, show report preview. And in this case, in this site, I've all open tickets and all items is going to be the same because I haven't closed any tickets yet. But watch what happens if I uncheck this box, I get the error because it's bringing back more than 5,000 items. So a lot of our customers who've been with us or SharePoint users in general, you're probably used to seeing that somewhere along the line. You've got over 5,000 items in a list, you're going to hit that threshold. Now we say over time and time again, you can have as many as 30 million items in your SharePoint list. I don't know if whoever would want to have 30 million items in a SharePoint list, but let's say you wanted to. You can, but the views, it's about querying the data and bringing it back, and Microsoft wants to limit how much gets pulled back at a time, but they do have some APIs and workarounds that we've built into our system now, into 365, that allows for getting around that threshold limit. So now we can go and query more than 5,000 items, bring them back. And something like rendering list data, I forget exactly what it is. There's some render API that we've used to do this. But that's there here for the reports. Like I said, it's there for the tiles and dials, and it's there for the list views, NITRO list views. All there, but you see we pull back more than 5,000 items in review, which is a nice, more recent addition to our reporting tool for, again, for 365. Now, the reason we haven't done for on-premises yet is, it was a couple. I mean, one, if you're on-premises, you can, it's maybe not recommended, but you can go and increase your list view threshold manually. But then there's also, it's just the way it works on premises, that same feature we're using in 365 isn't there in the on-premises world. So we have to go and figure out a different way to do it. And we just, haven't gotten there yet to get it for on-prem. So I apologize for your on-prem folks, not quite there yet, but for 365 folks, you'll see this here. Now, as we go through, you'll see I'm showing this as both a chart and a table. And you have the option to choose that report type right here. So we can show it as just a table if we want, and just show a report preview, which is a nice feature, so you can see how the report's going to look as you go through it. So we just showed the table. We can just show the chart if we want, and then we can also just I like to show both. I don't know, that's kind of my style, but you can see the numbers up here, but you can also see the numbers down here, right? And then once you have an option, the table, obviously all this stuff goes away. If we go table, all we need to do now is just show the table. There's really not that many options because it's just a column headers across the top, row headers down the side, and there you go. But the chart has more options where you have, in this case, a stacked column scenario. And you can see they're stacked right on top of each other. But let's say we want to go just a straight column option. We can do columns like that. So now they're all separated, and you can hover over them and see again how much each one has in it. See, website has 383, WAN has 383, telephone 385, et cetera, et cetera. Bar would just be like columns, but for horizontal bars instead of vertical bars like this. This kind of flips the really just kind of flips the Y and the X axis when we do it this way. But we have different types of charts too. So we can do area charts, which is not that's interesting. That one doesn't come out. All right. Pie charts, of course, which you may have seen in different areas. Oh, because of the priorities normal, there's only one option. You can see there's a proof that's over 5,000 right there, 5,005. And we don't have many segments because we just have the one priority option. Because when we do pie chart, it's not doing the X and the Y axis. It's really just looking at one of the two, which in this case is the X axis for priority. So that's why I got the pie chart with just the one scenario like that. Then we can do like funnel. Again, some of these might not look that great because they are looking at just like one piece of data. Yeah, there you go. The funnel chart, but it doesn't look that great. You know, if I change this around though, let me just change that real quick so I can kind of see the difference here. And it really just a matter, and I'll go through this in a minute, but it's really just a matter of switching category, and I'll change the column header over here. And then I'll change this to, oh, it didn't stack. Okay, hold on, category. And then priority down here. And then I can also just start typing and it'll go through my long list of columns. So that's also helpful. Let's see if it does something a little different. Actually, it's probably not going to look that much different because they're all about the same. So it doesn't really funnel all that well. But you kind of get the idea. And yeah, there's donuts, there's radar charts, there's all sorts of fun charts that you can kind of just play around with and see what chart type, you know, maybe you're looking for a particular chart type and you want to get to it and achieve that, but you can also just kind of play around and see what the different options are. You know, radar line, I think is going to kind of go around the kind of a polar axis, polar report kind of thing. I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know, it wasn't high school math. I think we learned about polar reports. It was a long time ago. At least for me. And then, yeah, do like radar column. Yeah, there you go. So kind of just different polar reports. And then you got the stacked reports. If you looked at stacked columns, stacked bars, of course, is going to be very similar in its, you know, stacking there. And you know, we also have this progress bar, which is kind of cool because it's that can be useful if you're just tracking like percentage completion of stuff up to a certain point. So that's another kind of neat one that you can play around and see if you can get it to show you something interesting. But that's the progress bar. We do have some other UI options here. We can do horizontal. Look at this. We can do horizontal progress bar. Oh, that's cool. I like that. All right. So yeah, just kind of play around with it. Is that a chance to play with everything here? So I'm just kind of like doing some stuff on the fly. That one's kind of cool. I like it. So there are some other UI options, and I'll talk more about the UI options, but one of the things that we've added in here is a chart description, which we can place at the top, at the bottom, at the center, at the left, or to the right. So obviously, you know, just if you choose bottom left, it's going to show up down here at the bottom. If we show top left, as you might imagine, it's going to be at the top. There it is. So that can be useful. And I actually like the chart description. And I'm just using the same title as the chart description, which you can do if you want. You don't have to. I'm going to go back to set columns, actually. That's going to come into play a little bit later in this workshop where I talk about the UI options that you have with now we can remove the header of the report. We can hide the toolbar of the report. So, you know, certain things that you can do that will now give you more options for how you display this report on a page. And we'll go through that in a little bit. Okay, so there's also options where you can hide that chart legend, right? So we want to get rid of this normal down here. We can do that. Yeah, different things you can just toggle around, and you can show volume value labels, which you know, depending on how many options, how many things you have coming back, can look kind of funky. But if you're just pulling back like a couple of columns or a couple of pieces of information, it can work pretty well for you. But this one, because they're all normal, they're all kind of running into each other. So sometimes it does, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Kind of depends on which kind of report you're trying to build and what kind of information you want to show on it. A lot of it, like I said, a lot of this can be done through hoverovers as well. So you know, kind of like a tooltip here, where it shows basically the same information you're getting at the top that's all jumbled. You just hover over it and see it. So kind of same idea. So we can do that. There's another couple of UI options that you have. Okay, so I switch these around, so that's why it's coming out a little different. But you know, x-axis, as you can see, is your information across the bottom. So that's going to be what value do you want to see broken out across the bottom. So we switched it from priority to category. You can see how it changed the report. So we had a stack column report when we first started this workshop, and it was just one column because there's only one priority. There's a priority of normal. We didn't have any high, we didn't have any low. So we just showed the one column that was there, but now we have multiple categories, so it's split out across in multiple columns across here. And if we had different priorities, they'd be split up upwards here because priority is now our y-axis, right? So that's the difference there. So really, when you choose the X or the Y axis, you're deciding, okay, how do I want my data to be broken down in this report? Like, what's my unit of measurement here, essentially? What is it by category? Is it by issue type? Is it by requester? Is it by assigned staff? Is it by department? So you can break that out in any way you want. So you can kind of imagine if you did department as a row, as the y-axis, and category as the x-axis. What's going to happen is that instead of broken down by priority, you'll have different stacked columns, because we're using a stacked columns report, of departments. So you can see, okay, department A has 100 calendar categories, tickets, and department C has 300 calendar category tickets. So you kind of break it down however you want in that way. So if we did like, something, I know this will show a little different, so I'm going to use it. If we did assigned staff, because I know we have varying assigned staffs for each of these tickets. I believe we do anyway. Let me find out. So now it's going to break out these columns across up, the vertical portions of the columns by the assigned staff. So let me do this report preview. Oh, I thought we had assignees. Let me try requester, because I think we have requesters split out. We may not have assigned any. Again, it's a test site, so all this data is kind of, not real. But let me go to requester and show that. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Oh, all right. I guess I didn't have requesters in this site. I do have it on another site in my this help desk here. I do have it requesters, but I'll anyway, the idea is that they would be broken out going up the chain here. Anyway, well, let's not belabor that, because I think hopefully you can imagine what that would look like. I apologize, I didn't have a way to show it. Let's just try one more, just because I always like to show things, because I know some people are more visual learners. Let me go ahead and try title, because I think I did have a couple of variations in title, not many, but a couple. No, not as many as I was hoping. All right, so I apologize for that. I didn't have, there's 5,000 tickets in here, but they all have minimal data in them. But that's basically how the column and x-axis break down. Column and row, the x-axis and y-axis break down, right? So how do you want your data to look across the bottom? How do you want your data to be broken out across the side there? And either one is required, but not both, right? So you can have your tickets broken down just across by category and just get straight numbers of counts of tickets by category or items by whatever. But you don't have to have a y-axis. You don't have to have that further breakdown if you don't want. So you could just run it with just the category across the top. And you could do it similarly if you just want to do a row of the titles. We could take that out. Let me just kind of see what that looks like. Probably not going to look like much, but let me try it anyway. We just have a row. Yeah, so there you go. So it's just putting all the test tickets in it, because that's my title, and it's just counting up the number of tickets called test ticket. You can see there are a couple different ones, but just like one or two of each. But now we've got the row of the title, and you can see it's counting the number of title tickets. Now, how are we getting that count? So that's where the value comes in. So it's really, there's two pieces required here. There's either the x-axis or y-axis, or both. You can do either or, either one or both, and then you got a cell value. Now, most of the reports that I've seen and we've run are counting the number of tickets that meet the criteria, right? So you can do the value. We do this by counting the ID, which in SharePoint, each item gets its own unique ID, and that will never be repeated, right? So other values could be repeated. There could be, obviously there's multiple items with the same titles, or multiple items with the same category, multiple items with the same requester. But the value column here, they're counting up the number of individual IDs to get the value in it. So we got at least two pieces of information to make this work. I think I just refreshed that. I apologize. That was okay. Let me just get back into it. All right, let me get back into it. So we need at least two pieces of information. We need the column, or the X, and then some kind of value count, right? So it could be a count. In this case, we're just doing ID, so it's going to be a count, but there's other ways. It could be a min, max, or range. of the calculation. So you can play around with those and get different results. I found most of the reports we're dealing with, and most of the things that people are looking for is just how many of an item do I have meeting this criteria. And so you can do that with an ID. And a lot of times other types of reports, frankly, are list views offer a good option for that. And so a lot of times you'll see me recommending, oh, just do that with list view because you got the filtering on the fly, or you can even just kind of filter it within the view. And it gives you essentially similar information as what you can get out of a report. Maybe views have counts, etc. But this is really about visualizing the information, visualizing the data on your page. And then you can add your tooltips, right? So if we want to have a tooltip of options, that's just going to be what the hover over is, right? So you do the count. Now, another thing we didn't talk about is the drill down. So you see in each of these, a column, row, and the value, we have a drill down option. And when we set that up for your drill down for column, drill down for row, that's gonna apply mostly for the table, but the drill down for value is going to apply mostly to the chart as well as the table. But that gives you a way to click over through to the number of tickets that meet the criteria, right? So now we got a hyperlink here for website, a hyperlink here for normal because we've turned on all those drill downs. It's going to open up a new page and it's going to show me those individual tickets where everything, it's pre-filtered on category, pre-filtered on priority, because priority was our other value that we had in there. And here you go. Now you can get all those tickets that met that criteria, and then you can go and dig down further if you need to. So that's a useful option in the column drill down. And of course you can do it on here if it's in the report. We can do just click and go through a column drill down over here as well. Same idea. So we've got a couple different options for that, for the drill down. And then with the totals columns, if I come back down here for the column x-axis and row axis, y-axis, there's the show totals column. Again, that's mostly for the table where we're going to have a totals column. So now if I turn those on, I show report preview. Now you got a totals column on the right and a totals column on the bottom because I've configured for both of those things. Now, obviously you can do it for one or the other or neither, but now you can see that total. And see is kind of a ambitious term because I don't think you can see it all that well, but that's going to bleed right into the next topic I'm talking about, which is going to be the UI of these reports and tables and color schemes. Because below all this, you have your advanced settings, which you can customize things with scripts. There's a lot of different options you can go there. I'm not going to touch on that in this workshop, but if you're interested in learning how to configure things by script, then there are things you can do like renaming columns and even showing the data in different ways through scripting. It's a possibility. But you have your themes, right? So we ship the product with a default theme, and I think it's Nitro Gray now, but that default theme can be changed, but you could also create your own theme. And then before I get into the themes, I'm going to just one last thing here is the show and report center. So if you're using our help desk, you have a report center page. If you want to set up a report center page, it's very easy to do. And basically the report center is just another web part that basically takes all the reports and shows them in a different way than what you're getting when you, let me cancel out this real quick, when you're doing it here, right? So here you got your reports and you can go and edit them, but we also created this report center option where you can go and actually see the different reports on the page and then show them to the right. So you just click on the report and it shows it over to the right. If there's, you just go through and click through each one. Now we are, I did talk to our dev team. We are going to throw some more dev time behind this, make it a little cleaner, because there are certainly some known drawbacks, but for the most part, this is the difference between the report settings screen and the report center, is that you have your report center options over here. So that's what we're talking about when we're looking at our the report center option within the report, is whether to show it in that report center or not. So you can choose on a report by report basis whether you want to show it, and you'll see right here also has the toggle switch. So I felt that was a much easier way for our users to quickly add or remove reports from that report center, because as you can see, it can get pretty unwieldy if you have a lot of them. But we can go through and turn them on and off just by simply clicking the button, and it gives you a little warning to say, hey, are you sure you want to do that? And then you can hit OK or cancel or whatever the choice is. So that gives you options to hide or show it in that report center that I showed. So there's your options there. Now, let's talk about themes. And so with themes, we have these two that we've created, and you can make one of them, or one of them, only one of them can be a default theme, really, right? You only have one default. So if you turn the other one on, let's see, it should turn the other one off. Let me make sure that's true. Yeah, it does. Okay, good. And then you can just have no default, and it'll just preset the colors. What these do, so this is the color scheme for the table. This is the color scheme for that report we're looking at, and it gives you ways to change that, right? So if we come into our, we'll create a new theme, but we can just go ahead and update. See, let's do, all right, let me close this. So this is open tickets by priority category. Let me go and make sure I have the theme in there so we can play around with it, and I can refresh it on that page. All right, we have default 2. All right, so let's play around with default 2. That's the one. I'm gonna cancel this. Come over here. So I created this workshop page. Just went to the settings, add a page. I don't have it linked anywhere else right now. Added a report web part, and again for the modern UI, you can do this where if you edit the page, you can get the plus button wherever it comes up. Let me come up below here. There it is. And then you can add a report Crocanian. That's what the web part, modern UI web part we're looking for. And if you can't find it, you can always just type in report at the top, and it's going to show you the options. And there's that report center link where you could create a page and have that report center on it. Usually you don't want to have anything else on the page if you do the page as a report center. But if you're building out a dashboard page, you want to have your different reports on there, and certainly you can build out other web parts in here as well. But once you've added that report to a page, you can go and select which one you want and add it on. And then any updates you make in the settings will filter through over here, which is what I'm going to do next. And I'll show you some of these as we get into the UI discussion a little bit in a few minutes. So I'm going to remove that, republish this. And let's go to themes. Let's go to default 2. Now, let's take a look over here. Okay, so we've got some, it's colors that are set, and I think every time I refresh, it should set the same colors. And that's because we've assigned a theme to it. Well, it's got slightly different, but maybe some of those options were not set in stone. But let's find out. So we have some options around the panel and the web part header and the web part toolbar. So we'll talk about those in a little bit. But there's also a table appearance, which I'm going to change because I don't like it. And there's a chart appearance. And the chart appearance here, we used to have up to 10 predefined colors that you could define. But then we realized there's going to be potentially more than 10 options. And you can see that's why my colors changed slightly when I refresh that report, because only the first 10 colors are defined. The next 10 after that, up to 20, are not. So it just automatically picks some other color. And you can see that happens, I think, with the top 2 here, maybe top 3, because I think it only goes up to this kind of like light-ish green color. Let's just find out. I'll do a quick refresh here. Yeah, see that lightish green color is the same, but then these last 3 are going to be different because we haven't defined the colors for those that far down yet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, exactly. But we have 13 values. So if we want to make sure those are always the same as what we've, every time someone looks at this report, refreshes it, we want those colors to be the same. Well, that's what you're going to do in the chart appearance, is make sure you define a color for, the 11. You want to make it a little contrasty, right? You want to make it. I'm just going to pick some random colors here because I don't want to take too much time with this. Because I know it's already 40 minutes in. But if we save that and refresh this page, now you've got those 3 colors at the top defined, right? Did I save that? Maybe I didn't save it. Oh yeah, I did. Okay. Okay, so yeah, you save it, and then once you go in and refresh, it'll set those colors for you. So that's on the chart, and then you see there's some general layout options for the chart. How big is it? We can have a fixed color for all of them. Automatic colors just means every time you refresh the report, you're going to get different colors. So if you want to have consistency or a particular color scheme, I always recommend defining colors, and then you can make a default theme for your whole site. Every time someone creates a report, the default theme will be chosen. They don't have to think about it. So I would recommend that. But then how big does it show on the screen? Well, we have some options where we could auto select it. Usually I do auto because you don't know how many reports you might have on a page, because the same theme is going to apply to multiple reports. Or, I guess suppose you could create a theme specifically for a specific report. That's fine too. But in general, you're going to have these themes across multiple reports. Now on the table side of things, I wanted to make some adjustments here because I'm not a big fan of how dark this is. We have these alternating colors, right? So let me refresh that real quick. And yeah, so now we've got some alternating colors here on the table. We can play around with that table and make it look a little nicer. So you see we've got some of these colors we've sort of been using forever in here, and here's the alternating. So we have the alternating color column options, alternating row options. I'm going to take those off. I think it essentially just makes it a little bit darker version of what the original color was. And I'm going to make it kind of a gray. I like the light gray options here. And I'm going to keep it the same. So I'm just going to take the same back color. I can copy it. I can paste it in. Gives me the same color. Let's see what that looks like. And you just kind of as people who've come to my workshops before know, I like to play around with things and just sort of try out different color schemes, try out different things, just see what works and what's good. And then once you kind of settle on it, you can roll it out. You say, actually, I think that looks a lot nicer. I don't know about you guys, but I think that looks a lot nicer for the reports. And of course, this yellow now kind of stands out as being a little bit not so great. So we can come back over here, go back to our default 2, and change that back color to, let's make it a darker gray because it's the header. And we'll leave the font color black. We could always change it. We could always make this darker and change it to white. I'm just going to leave it as a mid gray, I guess you could say. Save that, refresh this. And yeah, now it's got that mid gray kind of color with the dark font. So again, you can play around with that and see what works best for your theme and what you want to use for your purposes for the UI. Now, I do want to talk about other UI options since we getting a little bit short on time. So let me talk about some other UI options, and I'll talk quickly about multi-series reports, because I did promise that in the description. So let me run through this pretty quickly. You'll notice that we don't have those options up here at the top, which are the icons for exporting to Excel or exporting to print or to PDF. Those are hidden in the toolbar. So you see you have a couple places you could do that. You can do it on each report individually as you add them to pages, but you also have these options within the theme itself, where in the general tab that I skipped over earlier, you have a hide header and a hide toolbar option. So the toolbar, again, is that list of icons, and the header, of course, is what appears right at the top of the page. So I think we can hide the header, which I changed because if I take these out, let me unhide the header actually, because this is the typical, this is kind of the typical layout here. There, so kind of this dark bluish gray, I don't know what you call it, dark gray blue with a white font. That's what comes up out of the box, but we can say I don't like that, so we can remove it. We can either remove it entirely or we can change the color scheme, right? So we can hide it or we can remove it. Let me just show you what it looks like. We're not hiding the header, not hiding the toolbar. It looks a little, I don't know, clunky, thick. I don't know. This might be useful if you do want to have these quick action buttons at the top. You certainly can show them. That's fine, but sometimes for a cleaner look and feel, I like to hide them. So it kind of depends on your purpose. If you're needing to show them, you can. If you're deciding I don't like them, I want to clean up my look and feel, well, that's fine too. So we can go ahead and hide both of those things. And this is where I come back to that chart description. You can say I did add it on here, and so it is available. But if that wasn't there, you would have no idea what this report is showing. So if I republish this now the way it is, without the header, without the toolbar, without this text, you'd have no idea what this is showing, because there's really not a lot of information to tell you what it's about, although I guess that header does appear on the table as well. But if you were just showing the chart. So just a thing to be careful of if you're trying to remove things, trying to hide your headers, clean it up a little bit, make it a little more lighter look and feel. You do also want to add in your chart descriptions, because they're going to disappear, or you're not going to see what that chart's about if you don't have that header and you don't have a chart description. So I would almost always recommend having a chart description of some type in there. If you always want to show the title though, or the header, that you could always do that as well. You could always just remove it or not have it. I don't know. It's up to you. It's all about putting the power in your hands to make it look the way you want it to look. So you can see there's some other options here for the border panel, the header panel. So some different things. Of course, if we're hiding the header panel kind of becomes moot. But that's kind of the rundown there of the UI options that you have, similar to what you have in list views and tiles and dials. We've added a lot of these UI options in there, so you can change things around how they look, present your pages in a way that makes sense for you to present them. So you have those options available. Now, one thing I want to talk about real quick in the last 14, 15 minutes or so that we have left, certainly throw any questions you might have into the box and we can get them answered before the end of the workshop. But I wanted to touch on multi-series reports, as it's not something I don't think it's used that frequently, but it has its purposes, and but also, I'll be frank, it has some limitations in what you can do with it. So what I've done here is created a multi-series report that is showing, this one's broken out by categories and issue types. I think I did another one. I'm trying to see. I thought I set up another one that's. Oh, this is talking about something different. Sorry. So I actually did change it. Created versus modified date. That's what it is. So I originally set this up to look at categories and issue types, but I think dates look better. Because you might want to compare your dates for when things were created versus how many items were modified on a given date. So this kind of gives you a sense of if you're actively using some kind of tickets list or documents list, and you want to see like how many items are getting created versus how many items are being modified in a particular day, or maybe have certain statuses on particular times. You can use a multi-series report. And one of the nice things about it is that you can have these overlays of either columns or lines. So let's say if I want to change this to a line chart and show you the preview. So you have the kind of multiple series of data in the same thing. So essentially it does kind of limit you to just the x-axis more or less, right? So you're just configuring different x-axis information across the bottom, which can be fine, but you don't really get that y-axis component, which is, I think one of the limitations here, one of the things I think we'll be working on in the not too distant future. But that is, one of the things I wanted to look at, right? So we have the y-axis, there's the x-axis, and I'm just going to do dates because that's what it actually represents. Yeah, there you go. And again, the theme application applies here as well. You can see it's all doing different colors. I'm just going to set a theme so that we can keep it consistent every time we show a preview. All right, there we go. So the thing to remember with these these multi-series reports is the columns that you're comparing within one report are really going to be the same data type. And it's another one of the limitations of the multi-series is that you can't compare like a category value, which is a text value, to a date. So you can't have like dates across the bottom and then your categories across the bottom. It's going to be one set type of data point that you're showing here in the report. So your category value type, once this changes, it gets rid of the series that you've created, which are pretty simple to set up. But say I want to change it back to text, you can see my series go away, And if I try to report preview, it's going to tell me I need to define a series. So that's one of the things to be cognizant of when you're using this tool is decide what values do you want to compare, right? So at one point I wanted to compare categories and issue types for some reason. I don't know why, but it just kind of made sense to me to show something. And we're going to do that again. So again, this is like your x-axis. Essentially, the category column is your x-axis. The value column is what I was talking about earlier, where you have usually a count of items that meet the criteria, and I'm going to use ID because again, like I said, that one's unique, and the calculation is going to be count. So we could stack them if we want. We could do auto or use let me define some colors here. For this one, I'll just use a kind of a brightish blue, why not? And then we can do a new series. Again, it's got to be a type of text, right? So we could do issue type, and chart type could be column, could be line. We could always come back in here and change it. But I'm going to start with column. I'm going to do bar just to show this could be a little different. So issue type, there we go. Issue type, values ID, because we want that count. So again, category column is basically going to be your X value, X-axis value, and then your value column is going to be the count, what you're counting, or what what do you want to show like in the grid of the report. I do red color here, maybe like a rose-ish color, and let's see what that looks like. Probably look kind of funky, but yeah, okay, that's not so bad. Doesn't really tell us much, but it does change what, kind of shows you can show different things in a different way. And that is, that's how you can configure a multi-series report. Now, of course, you can have a lot of different series in here, so you can compare a lot of different information. But of course, the more information you add, the more cluttered that report's going to get, and you're going to get, you might run into some issues with it showing too much information all across the bottom. So again, another thing to be thoughtful of when you're creating a multi-series report is how much data do you want to see, how much data is going to be across the bottom, what data are you comparing to what, and so you can see that across your report. Excuse me, your report. And then unlike the other types of reports, the multi-series report actually gives you an option to change the legend position. So you can move it to left, bottom, right, or put it at the top. Let me say just put it at the bottom. And it's just going to be like the 4 points. Oh, did I save it? Oops, I meant to show it. So you can, I changed it to created. Yeah, versus modified data. Okay. Always remember what you call your reports in case you accidentally save it like I did and have to get back to it. And so there's, yeah, okay, so saved as category, issue type, that's fine. But if I show the report preview, yeah, now it's at the bottom. So, some things that I think are fairly obvious, but hopefully I've shown you some things that may not be as obvious, and that will hopefully help you get through configuring these different types of reports, maybe multi-series reports, and kind of gives you some different tips and tricks and ideas on how to do different things with the reporting tool. So that's essentially what I wanted to show you. There was a comment about getting the devs to say that the category access when we open this up is the x-axis. I think that makes sense. That's a great feedback. We'll definitely look at, it's just basically saying x-axis. It may be that if we do these both as bar, let me just try this one as bar, because, well, I guess it doesn't really matter because it's still kind of considered the x-axis. It might show it horizontally, but that might not, that's kind of like, yeah, there you go. Okay, so now they're both bars. They show across that way. But that doesn't really matter because whether it's shown like this or I think most people will show the horizontal version, it's going to be the x-axis. So that's good feedback. We'll take that and hopefully incorporate that into the tool in the not too distant future. But yeah, that's kind of the rundown of reports. Certainly, if there's anything else you want to see that you didn't quite see on this workshop, pop it into that box now. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that while we're wrapping up here. But hopefully you've gotten some good ideas on using the different UI options you have now. Hopefully if you're in 365, you can get used to have that large list toggle button that we have there now. I think that's going to be really useful. Remembering those list roll-up options, so you can get a report on multiple lists at one time. I think that's really valuable. Having the option to look at data from another site and bring it forward into the site you're working on, I think that's really a cool thing to keep in mind, is they have that option available to you. And then you can, using the different views, hopefully you can take that and run with it. But yeah, so that's kind of the run of it. I appreciate you guys coming on today. And we'll see you soon at the next workshop. Krista, anything to add?
Well, thanks so much for sharing all of that with us today. I know I definitely learned a thing or two, and noticed a lot of familiar faces and some new faces too joining us. So hopefully everyone enjoyed this as much as I did. And appreciate you walking us through everything today, James.
You're welcome. And thank you all again. Thank you all for joining, and we'll hopefully talk to you all soon.